Apple just released the new MacBook Neo. It is Apple's most affordable MacBook ever, starting at just $599, and with an education discount, it's just $499. That's right, you can get a brand new MacBook today for $500. Now, this new MacBook is based on the A18 chip instead of an M series chip. We'll get into those details in a second. 2 USB-C ports, headphone jack, 13-inch display, and you can get it with Touch ID, but there are very minimal customization options. So let's talk about whether you should go with the MacBook Neo or the MacBook Air, and why this might be Apple's best-selling MacBook of all time. The new MacBook Neo is made out of aluminum. It's not like those old school MacBooks that were plasticky, so you get a high-quality aluminum frame, and you do get multiple color options, the most colors of any MacBook in Apple's lineup. Apple says it's going to have 16 hours of battery life, 1080p FaceTime camera, 2 side-firing speakers, and you have those 2 USB-C ports, no MagSafe for charging, and no Thunderbolt if you wanted to connect faster peripherals. The display has the same brightness as the MacBook Air at 500 nits, but there are some trade-offs to that display too, more in a second. And when it comes to ordering it, which you can actually pre-order right now, customization options, super minimal. You choose your color, the silver, blush, citrus, or indigo, and then you choose the storage size, and that's it. 256GB SSD is the starting storage. That does not come with Touch ID, or you can upgrade to 512, and then you get that Touch ID button. That's the only option. Comes with 8GB of unified memory, no option to upgrade that, and no option to upgrade the storage past 512. Apple is 100% going after all those Chromebooks in schools, and for those going to college, this is going to be an incredible deal. $500 for a MacBook. It still uses Apple Intelligence if you want to use those features, and even if you go with that more expensive version, it's $700 or $600 with an education discount. Now I'm going to get one to test out, especially comparing it for video editing if you have a student that wants to do that, and maybe some music production, but you may be wondering, why is this not an M series chip? Well, the A18 Pro is actually relatively new. It was actually in the iPhone 16 lineup, and the A18 Pro is based on the 3nm process. Now, if we compare the models, MacBook Neo here on the left and the M2 MacBook Air here in the middle, you'll see the M2 MacBook Air actually started with the same memory, 8GB. It has a couple more cores, so you might get a little more speed out of that. But again, I'll be testing that. I have an M2 MacBook Air I can run some tests with, so get subscribed. That'll be coming soon. Now, MacBook Airs in general will get better battery life. This is the M2 and even the newer M5 MacBook Air. We're talking a couple hours here, and you do have to upgrade to the more expensive model for Touch ID, whereas on all MacBook Airs, you get a Touch ID button. But there are some other trade-offs. I'm going to switch these around. So now the brand new M5 MacBook Air that was just announced yesterday is here in the middle. The new MacBook Neo here on the left. Obviously with that A18 Pro, you're going to get fewer cores, so it is not going to be as fast as a MacBook Air. You only have the 8GB memory option and 512GB max SSD, but even the display is a little different than the MacBook Air. While it is slightly smaller, 13-inch versus 13.6 inches, you don't get the wide color gamut that you get on the MacBook Air, and the MacBook Neo does not have True Tone. That's where the temperature of the display adjusts to your surrounding light. You may or may not notice that, but it is not on the Neo where it is on the MacBook Air. Also, that front-facing camera you can use for FaceTime, the MacBook Neo says it has a 1080p FaceTime camera, but no center stage. That's where it'll zoom in on you and actually follow you a little bit around the room. No center stage on the MacBook Neo, while the newer MacBook Air has that 12-megapixel center stage camera. Now, audio is something I'm definitely going to have to test. The MacBook Neo has 2 side-firing speakers, and the MacBook Air sound quality has always been a little lackluster, especially compared to the MacBook Pros, but we'll have to see how the MacBook Neo sounds compared to the Air, so stay tuned. MacBook Neo has dual mics instead of the 3 mics like the new MacBook Air, and this may or may not be important to you, but there is no backlit keyboard on the MacBook Neo. MacBook Airs, either the M5 and even all the way back to the M2, have that backlit keyboard. Also, strangely, the trackpad doesn't have the Force Touch. That's where you can push a little harder on the trackpad on your MacBook Air or MacBook Pro and do something different, like look up a word in the dictionary rather than just clicking it. Has slower Wi-Fi 6E compared to the new Wi-Fi 7 chip in the MacBook Air. That's not a huge deal, and it actually has the same Bluetooth 6 as the Air. And when it comes to ports, strangely, it's one USB 3 and one USB 2 port. So again, transferring and data speeds, you're not going to have fast speeds if you're dealing with like external SSDs and video footage. That's not what the Neo's for. MacBook Air, on the other hand, you get 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports. And you'll see at the bottom it comes with a 20-watt power adapter. You'll see here on the tech specs page the difference between those 2 USB ports, so slower speeds on the 2, faster speeds on this USB 3 port. And this little slot right here, not SD cards. I think that's the speaker. It does support one external display up to 4K 60Hz, so not higher refresh rates. And I can't find any information if it will charge faster than that 20 watts, but stay tuned, I'm gonna get one to test. Overall though, the MacBook Neo, especially for students and maybe even those going to college next year, this is an incredible deal. This is the cheapest ever MacBook. Now, depending on your needs, maybe an M2 and M4 MacBook Air used or having a sale on Amazon, those might be worthwhile, especially if you need more storage, like a terabyte or higher, or you need more unified memory because you're doing a ton of tabs, or you want to do video and audio production. I edit videos on my M4 MacBook Air whenever I'm traveling, and it doesn't miss a beat. I'll be testing that with the MacBook Neo to see how far I can actually push it editing videos like for the YouTube channel on that cheaper laptop. But for students doing research, writing papers, web browsing, and wanting that Apple ecosystem experience with their iPhone and maybe their iPad, the MacBook Neo is an incredible deal. Now, one other thing I wish was different, the weight of the MacBook Neo is actually the same as the MacBook Air. And even though it has a smaller display, the physical dimensions of the device are slightly larger in some areas compared to the MacBook Air. So I'll do that one-to-one comparison. I wish it was a little lighter, but again, for that price, pretty incredible deal. So get subscribed. I already ordered one. And yes, I also did order the Studio Display XDR. So get subscribed. All that stuff is coming. I'll put a couple videos up here YouTube thinks you'll like. And if you want to make the most of that Mac, shortcuts and automation is the way to do it. And you can learn more in my shortcuts community at shortcut.bot. We'd love to have you there. We've actually crossed the 4,000 number. There's now over 4,000 members that have joined for free and a bunch of support to get access to my weekly live streams, which I'm going to be doing one in an hour. So I got to get off and edit this video. You also get all my YouTube videos ad-free when you become a member of the community. So again, that's shortcut.bot. Thank you again for watching, subscribing, liking, commenting, and we'll catch you next time.